نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد, to proceed, the best of speech is the speech of Allah Azza wa Jal, and the best of guidance is the guidance of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the worst of all affairs are the affairs that have newly been added into the religion. Everything newly added into the religion is an innovation, and every innovation is a misguidance, and every misguidance is in the fire of hell. It pleases me tonight to be here again in this blessed masjid amongst my brothers and my companions in the journey of knowledge. And I praise Allah Azza wa Jal for having given us the opportunity to gather again upon this khair and to continue where we left off last time. I ask Him Azza wa Jal to make this heavy on our scales and to make these gatherings blessed and beneficial for all. And before we proceed any further, I want to give a very brief reminder about the issue of intention. One of the things that brings about the barakah, the blessing of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, and the abundance of benefits is renewing the intention. It is very easy to fall into taking the intention for granted. But many times, it is when we are taking it for granted that it starts to slip and go into other directions. It's extremely important to renew the intention, to ask ourselves why we're here, what we're gathering for, and to look for these reasons that are pleasing to Allah Azza wa Jal and keep them at the forefront of our mind. This is a reason for the blessing, for the extra benefit. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gather us upon khair. And inshallah we will continue from point number 18. Last time I think we finished point number 17. فنبدأ من المسألة الثامنة عشر بإذن الله تعالى.
الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. قال المصنف رحمه الله: المسألة الثامنة عشرة: تناقضهم في الانتساب، ينتسبون إلى إبراهيم مع إظهارهم ترك اتباعه.
Now, this is the 18th issue from the issues of Al-Jahiliyyah. One of the things that is observed upon the people of Jahiliyyah is that they claim that they are followers of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam. Yet at the same time, they clearly, even with casual observation, appear to go against him alayhi salatu wassalam. And this falls under the category of false claims. False claims. The Arab poet said a long time ago, كل يدعي وصلا بليلى وليلى لا تقره لهم بذاك. Everyone is claiming to have a relationship with Layla, yet Layla does not agree to any of this. She's saying all of this is false. The meaning here is that they are trying to attach themselves to Ibrahim. We are followers of Ibrahim. Automatically, what do you assume about them? They're upon goodness, they're upon righteousness, they're upon guidance. هم على خير على هدى على طريقة سوية. But as soon as you examine what they are actually upon, as soon as you look, you find that they are actually what? Upon deviation from the path of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. So in essence, we're being taught two things. Number one, that claims need validation. You claim you're from the people of Jannah, validate that. You claim you're following Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, validate that. You claim you're following Ibrahim, validate that. How do you validate? With actions. And number two, anybody that you hear them making a claim, look into the reality of that claim. Do not be fooled by the claims of those who make claims until you look at what's behind the claim. A man comes to you and he's talking about, I'm following the sunnah, I'm this, I'm that, I'm upon the path of a sheikh so and so, this is my madhab, this is my tariqah, this is my path. Look at his actions. And then you will be able to determine what is the truth of that claim. Here they're claiming to be followers of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam, Khalilullah. But if you look at their actions, what do you see? You see that they are following the ways of the pagans of old, the idol worshippers. We mentioned an example last time, the hadith in Bukhari, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he entered Mecca, Aam al-Fath, and he commanded that all the idols be broken before he entered the Kaaba sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When they started breaking the idols, they found two statues that supposedly represent Ibrahim and his son Ismail alayhi salatu wassalam, while they are performing al-istiqsam bil-azlam, type of seeking the knowledge of the ghaib using these azlam. A practice of Jahiliyyah, a practice of shirk. A practice that the mushrikeen, the polytheists of Mecca, used to themselves perform. When the Prophet ﷺ saw that image that is carved in stone of these two noble prophets doing this thing from the effects of the Jahiliyyah, he ﷺ became angry. And he defended Ibrahim and he defended Ismail and he said, قَاتَلَهُمُ اللَّهُ. May Allah fight them. These people who carved this and made this claim, قَاتَلَهُمُ اللَّهُ. Wallahi, I swear by Allah, إِنِ اسْتَقْسَمَ بِالْأَزْلَامِ قَطْ. They never performed al-istiqsam bil-azlam. This is a defense of Ibrahim and Ismail alayhi salatu wassalam. So these are the types of claims they make. Sometimes they say we're upon the path, and you look, you see them on a different path. Sometimes they say, well, he was doing it too. But they have no actual proof. It's all just lies and fabrications. In this millah, in this religion, claims are worthless. Our scholars have said, do not be fooled and deceived by the speech of any man until you see what he is acting upon. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed a verse that the scholars call Ayatul Mihna, the verse of test. This is a test that Allah revealed in the Quran. Which ayah is this? قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِ. Say, if you love Allah, and Ya Muhammad, say to them, if you all love Allah, then follow me, the messenger of Allah. It's easy to make this claim, I love Allah. Everybody can make a claim, right? But claims are worthless until they're validated by actions. This is why they were told, فَاتَّبِعُونَ. And then and only then does that claim become valid. Because if you follow Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, this is the proof that you do love Allah, and then you get the reward. And what is that reward? يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ. Allah shall then love you and forgive you your sins. And this shows us the most important thing here is that Allah loves you. If Allah loves you, you're a winner. Loving Allah, but Allah does not love you back, this does not guarantee any kind of success or victory. Now,
قال رحمه الله 19 قدحهم في بعض الصالحين بفعل بعض المنتسبين إليه كقدح اليهود في عيسى وقدح اليهود والنصارى في محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم.
The author here in the 19th issue, he's mentioning how the people of Jahiliyyah speak ill of, accuse and diminish the status of some of the righteous, بعض الصالحين, by the actions of some of those who attribute themselves to them. Like how the Jews speak ill of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam based on the actions of some of the Christians. And how the Jews and the Christians speak ill of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and their excuse is some of the actions of the Muslims. And this is simply an attempt to cover up the truth. From the ways of covering up the truth is to create a false association between the actions of the claimants of a specific religion and the role model of that religion. يعني مثلا, they see some Muslims committing sins, مثلا lying or deceiving or cheating or stealing, and they say this is proof that the messenger is upon falsehood. What's the connection? There is no connection. But the simple-minded, they fall for these likes of tricks. The likes of these tricks, they work on the simple-minded. In reality, Islam can be entered into just by the testimony of faith. A man says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. He entered Islam. He's a Muslim. Does that automatically mean that he's following Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in every single thing? The answer is obviously what? No. That takes work. It takes dedication. It takes learning. It takes application. So there is no reason to accuse Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam of any shortcomings just because some Muslims have shortcomings. Rather, we say these people only represent themselves. They do not represent Islam itself. They do not represent the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But this is from the methods of the people of falsehood. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us very clearly, لا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى. No carrier of burden shall carry the burden of another. No carrier of burden shall carry the burden of another. If a man, for example, has a son, he taught him well, he educated him, he advised him, he kept him in good company, he sent him to the masjid, etc., etc., etc. He did everything that he can. But that son still chose the path of deviance. Is there any blame on the father? Can we say the father is a bad man? Huh? No. Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam. What kind of father is he? Nuh. Al-Rasul al-Kareem, min Uli al-Azm, min al-Rusul. What kind of father is he? Huh? One of the best of fathers that have ever walked the face of the earth. Is there any doubt about this? No doubt. But his son chose what? Al-Kufr. Although his father was concerned for him, he got great love for him. Ya bunayya irkab ma'ana, to the last moment. Even when the flood of the earth began. And he's saying to his son, Ya bunayya irkab ma'ana. Do not be from those who are going to be destroyed. Join us. Get on the ship with us. And the son is still arguing with his father and insisting that he's got his own plan and he's going to escape the drowning. Until the waves finally came between them and he could no longer communicate with him and he was destroyed to the hellfire of Bi'sa al-Masir. Can we blame Nuh? Absolutely not. This is from the ways of Al-Jahiliyyah. No.
قال رحمه الله مسألة 20 اعتقادهم في مخاريق السحرة وأمثالهم أنها من كرامات الصالحين ونسبتهم إلى الأنبياء كما نسبوه لسليمان عليه السلام.
This one here is very interesting. They think that the supernatural phenomena that occur at the hands of magicians and their likes are a sign of righteousness and honor bestowed upon them by Allah. And they also attribute these types of actions to the prophets, just like they attributed it to Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam. Now, there's a couple of issues here. Number one, that these magicians and their likes, some unusual things happen at their hands. Some phenomena that appear to be supernatural. Khawariq, khariqa lil'ada, miracles if you wish. Na'am. And some people are of the mindset that anyone who can make a miracle happen must be what? Wali min awliya Allah as-salihin. He must be from the great awliya of Allah. Is this the correct understanding? Huh? Hi, ikhwan. No. Why not? لماذا لا? Why not? If someone can make miracles happen, why isn't he necessarily from the awliya? The answer is, what's a miracle to you, to somebody else, might be something that is very easy. And I'm going to give you two types. Number one, people who are very good with what they call magical tricks, sleights of the hand and deception of the eye. These people can do things that to you seem like a miracle, but for them it's just training. They've trained and trained and trained until they figured out how to perfect this technique. So when they show you what they're doing, you think it's a miracle, but in reality it's only what? Training. Just a trick. When we were very young, sometimes we saw that our parents or some of the older people in the masjid, they tried to trick us with certain things, making a coin disappear or the finger split from the hand or things like that. And we would be fooled by it. But as we grow up, the tricks become more and more what? Advanced and involved. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah ta'ala, in his time, there was a group of people who practiced this kind of stuff. And they would then jump into fire and walk in it, showing the people we are untouchable. The fire does not eat us. And they claim that they are from the awliya, al-salihin. Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah started refuting them, exposing them, showing that they are upon falsehood, they are going against the sunnah, and then he said to them, I challenge you to wash your body with such and such. A substance that he knows will take off the protective ointment that they have. He knows exactly what they're using. I challenge you to wash your body with such and such. And then walk into the fire while I'm reciting Ayatul Kursi. Yalla, show me what you can do. What's the challenge? Walk the fire again, just like you're walking every day in front of the people, but after you wash. And I will be reading Ayatul Kursi. What do you think they said? Game on? Huh? Not one of them was willing to do it. Because we all know the result, right? Anyway. So, the washing part we understand. Why Ayatul Kursi? Because jinn helped them. And this is the second type I'm going to talk about, right? Jinn help these kinds of people. So instead of him walking on these hot coals with his full weight and it going through the ointment, the jinn lift him up a little bit, so he appears to be walking. And because there's this, certain measure of elevation, the weight is not so heavy, so he can get away with a quick walk over these coals. No burns. And the jinn, they have capabilities that we don't have. For us, it's a miracle. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the jinn that they seek to hear what's going on in the heavens. Who from amongst us can go to the heavens and try to hear what's going on over there? To you, this is a miracle. A man flew into the sky and came back, but to the jinn, this is normal. When we see a shooting star coming down from the sky, what does that mean? The shayateen are being cast with these shooting stars to stop them and prevent them from trying to get information from the heavens. For them, it's normal. It's an everyday practice. They fly to the sky, they go try to listen, and they come back. For us, it's a miracle. Also, from the things that the jinn are capable of is diving into the sea. Can we dive into the sea? You need equipment, and you need a submarine, and you need this, and you need that. Things that maybe just 100 years ago were not available. So what is a miracle to you could be one of two things. It could be something that the jinn are assisting with, or it could simply be a trick that uses some kind of device, be it an ointment, be it a sleight of hand, be it something that you train until you figure out how to do, and then you realize there's no miracle at all involved. It's just a matter of training and trickery and profession. Now, on the other hand, there are karamat. Karamat are real. There are miracles that Allah sends to aid and support the righteous. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was given some of these. In fact, Allah mentions some of them in the Quran. اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر. The hour has drawn near and the moon has split. The Messenger ﷺ, Allah revealed to him that he will give him a sign, and he told the people of Quraysh that he will show them a sign, and the moon split as they were looking. One side of the moon was in this part of the sky, and the other half of the moon was in that part of the sky, and they saw them. By the way, what do you think their reaction was? They all accepted Islam on the spot? Huh? No. They said he magicked our eyes. They have an excuse for everything, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا تُغْنِي الْآيَاتُ وَالنُّذُرُ عَنْ مَنْ وَمَا تُغْنِي الْآيَاتُ وَالنُّذُرُ عَنْ قَوْمٍ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. The people who do not believe. These people, if you bring them the angels, and the skies open up for them to look fi malakutillah, and Allah Azza wa Jal himself comes, they're not going to believe. The believer, the real believer, the smallest sign is enough for him. He looks at his own hand and he says, Wallahi, Wallahi, this would not come to be so complex if it was not for Allah. He looks at his own hand. That's enough for him. He doesn't need to look past that. It's the believer. As for the disbeliever who doesn't believe, if you bring him the angels, if he sees Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, he's not going to believe. So there are miracles. The prophets have received miracles. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam one time fed an army. He fed an army from a single dish by the barakah that Allah Azza wa Jalla sent into that dish. One time he sallallahu alayhi wasallam put his hand into a vessel that only had enough water in it to cover his hand. And the Sahaba radiallahu anhum saw water gushing out from between his fingers. And everybody in that army came and filled their vessels. And the animals drank until every single vessel they had with them was full. Now we notice here, based on the examples we gave, that there are two reasons why Allah sends these miracles. Who can tell us what these two reasons you noticed are? Now,
to help the believers,
an aid for the believers when they're in a state of need. Jameel, this is one. What's the other? The other is very closely related, but slightly different. Now, Tathbeet. Make it a little clearer. Tathbeet is correct, but how? Ma'iyya. Yeah, Ma'iyya and Tathbeet, close. I'm looking for something that makes it clear, huh? I think all of us are talking about the same thing. Let's put it this way. Let's say, أن الله عز وجل يؤيد رسله بالحجة. So it becomes proof. Proof that they are prophets. They are messengers. Miracles to support their argument that they're being sent by Allah with the message of Allah Tabaraka Ta'ala. فَالتَّأْيِيدُ بِالْحُجَّةِ. أو العون عند ضرورة. And these kinds of things are the same type that occurred to some of the righteous slaves of Allah. Some of the righteous slaves of Allah, the exact same thing happens to them. Though their miracles are going to be at a smaller and lesser scale than the miracles of what? The prophets and the messengers. Is that clear? Yeah. Can we think of some examples? Many examples. Umar radiallahu anhu, one day he's giving a khutbah and he starts shouting, Ya Sariyat al-Jabal, Ya Sariyat al-Jabal. Everyone knows the story? He was giving a khutbah and he starts calling the name of Sariyat radiallahu anhu. Why? Because Allah Azza wa Jal made Umar realize that the army he sent with Sariyat in charge of the army are being ambushed and they need to go towards the mountain and use the mountain as a cover so that they will not be killed. So he started shouting, Ya Sari al-Jabal, Ya Sari al-Jabal. And when the army returned, they said to Umar, this was happening. Then we heard a voice calling, Ya Sari al-Jabal. So we went towards the mountain and Allah saved us. Very famous story mentioned in many of the books of the people of knowledge. Another example, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he told the baby in his wife's stomach is going to be a girl, right before he died. And it turned out to be what? A girl. Umar radiallahu anhu foretold of someone from his progeny that will come out that will be a just man, a just leader. Al-Khadr, he told Musa about the affair of the child and what he would have grown up to be. Another example, Allah mentioned in the surah, in the story of the Prophet Sulaiman, when he was asking for the arsh of the Queen of Sheba, of Saba. قال الذي عنده علم من الكتاب أنا آتيك به قبل أن تقوم من مقامك. لا قال عفريت من الجن أنا آتيك قبل وقال الذي عنده علم من الكتاب أنا آتيك به قبل أن يرتد إليك طرفك. The one who has knowledge of the book, he said, I will bring it to you before, and basically the meaning is before you blink, before your sight comes back to you. And then Allah said, فَلَمَّا رَآهُ مُسْتَقِرًا عِنْدَهُ. He instantly made the throne of the Queen of Sheba appear. All the way from that kingdom, he brought it to in front of Sulaiman in the blink of an eye. This is a miracle. This is a miracle. Another example. Abu Muslim al-Khawlani, when he was thrown into the fire and he came walking out of it. Khalid ibn Walid radiallahu anhu, when he drank the poison after naming the name of Allah, saying Bismillah, and he drank the poison and the poison didn't harm him. And many examples. If you try to count the likes of these things, some of the scholars, they said the number of these types of stories is as plentiful as the number of raindrops. There's so much of this. And they also follow the two same categories that we mentioned, either tathbitu hujjah or a'awnun 'inda darurati wafat. Allah helps the Muslims when they are in need, or Allah makes their proof stronger and aids them and supports them. Now the third type is what we talked about, which is the jinn. People working with the jinn. The jinn sometimes raise them into the air. They look like they're flying. Or sometimes these people can swallow fire or stab themselves with knives and they don't bleed. Or other such types things. They tell you what you're thinking about or what you have done at home and they weren't there. All of this is from the help of the jinn. One of the key differences you will notice between these people and the righteous is the righteous almost seem ashamed of the miracles that happen. And they would love for nothing more than for it to be forgotten. When Umar was told, radiallahu anhu, about what happened, what was his reaction? He stayed quiet. He didn't say anything. When some of these people commit what they commit of these supernatural behaviors, you see them smiling and saying, I am such and such, and my way is such and such, and this is from the barakah of doing such and such, and making boastful claims. This is a key difference in attitude, in demeanor. Another difference is that many of the people who are using the jinn, they're also looking for monetary gain. You will find that they offer certain services that are supposedly religious services in exchange for money. Whether it's selling you objects, or offering you their dua, or so on and so forth, in exchange for wealth. And here's the strange part, the really weird thing, is that a lot of these people working with the jinn are not known to follow the religion of Allah Ta'ala. In fact, some of them are known to not even pray, let alone follow the sunnah. Even the salah, which is the basics of the deen, some of them are known not to pray. Why do I call this strange? Because people should know better than to say someone is a wali and he doesn't even pray. لكن هذه من عجائب هذا الزمان ومن أزمنة أن الناس لا تدري ما هو الطريق إلى الله. The people do not know what is the path to Allah. They think that there's some kind of shortcut that he took, so he doesn't have to pray. There's no shortcuts. The deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires what? Hard work. ألا إن سلعة الله غالية. ألا إن سلعة الله الجنة. Allah Azza wa Jal made it very clear. The merchandise of Allah is expensive. There's no shortcuts. There's no special discount. There's no one-time offer because of the holidays. سلعة الله غالية. ألا إن سلعة الله الجنة. It is expensive. It is precious. You have to pay the price. أم حسبتم أن تدخلوا الجنة. Do you think you will enter Jannah? ولما يأتكم مثل الذين خلوا من قبلكم. You're going to think you're going to enter Jannah without having tasted what those before you have tasted. مستهم البأساء والضراء وزلزلوا. They were afflicted by poverty and disease and they were shaken. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, if anyone was going to be given a shortcut, he would have been given a shortcut. The discount to Jannah. No, there's no discount. قتل عمه حمزة. ماتت زوجته خديجة. مات عمه أبو طالب على الكفر والشرك. مات أولاده كلهم وهو حي صلى الله عليه وسلم وبعض أحفاده إلا فاطمة. يدفن بيديه فلدة كبده صلى الله عليه وسلم. Burying with his own hands the apples of his eyes, his children. Kicked out by his own people from Mecca, the most beloved of all of the places on earth to him, the places dearest to his heart. He's kicked out of Mecca. He had to run away. And his reputation, Sahir, Kazzab, Majnoon, etc. Magician, crazy man, so on and so forth. How much trial did Muhammad go through? And then somebody comes and says, I think I found a shortcut to Jannah. Let me tell you a story. One of the scholars of old was walking in an empty desert area. It was nighttime, and then all of a sudden a humongous light appeared from behind the mountain. And then a booming voice spoke, a voice like you've never heard before, saying, "O Fulan, I am your Lord, and I have relieved you of as-salah." This light appears out of the darkness between two mountains, fills up the whole area, and a booming voice and saying, He is Allah. And that Allah has relieved him from as-salah. Asqattu anka as-salah. A lot of people right now, they would throw their hands up in the air and be like, yes, I made it. But what was his reaction? This is a man of knowledge. What was his reaction? He said, إِخْسَأْ عَدُوَ اللَّهِ اخسأ عدو Allah. He said, be lowly, O enemy of Allah. The light turned off and the voice turned normal. And he called out to him, how did you recognize me? He said, I have misguided before you 70 known worshippers with the same trick. There is no shortcut to Jannah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, وَاعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ, and worship your Lord until certainty comes to you. The Prophet ﷺ, when Uthman ibn Maz'un died, he said, as for Uthman, certainty has come to him. Yani death. The tafsir of the ayah, the meaning of the ayah, worship your Lord until death comes to you. There is no point at which worship stops. Some of these people, they say, no, I stopped worshiping because certainty has come to me. That's not the meaning of the ayah, brother. The Prophet ﷺ said certainty is death. And why did Abu Bakr as-Siddiq never stop worshiping? Maybe he didn't reach certainty, but you have. Umar didn't reach it, but you have. Uthman didn't reach it, but you have. Ali ibn Abi Talib didn't reach it, you have. This certainty that you've reached, that they haven't reached, we don't want it. Keep it to yourself. Keep that certainty to yourself. This is misguidance manifest. So the point here is that a lot of these things that people are being fooled by are simply due to lack of knowledge, not understanding the difference between a miracle from Allah Ta'ala for a righteous man to help the Muslimin in a state of need, or to make their proof stronger in a place where their arguments are being aided by Allah Ta'ala, versus these people who use these kinds of tricks on a daily basis to make a living, to feed and benefit off of people's wealth and income. And we will stop at this point, inshallah. This is the last point we'll take tonight. One more thing I want to mention is a story that a man decided to make a business out of this thing. So he went to a village in Africa, people who are very, very simple. And he had with him what is known as I don't know the English word, but in Arabic they say mukayyif sahawi. Right? It's a type of AC system that works off of water. It doesn't need all the things that you would normally need for an AC system. So he had that installed in his place of stay, and he also had a garage type door installed where you can just press a button, the door will open, and press another button and the door will close. Things that here in America perhaps we take them for granted. Very normal. You go to Walmart, you buy stuff. But these people in Africa, they never saw that. They made a business. The wali is just sitting there and he puts his toe on the button, he opens the thing, and they're like, oh, door opens with him without him saying a word. He just looks at it and opens. And then he pushes another button after they leave and the door closes. They see him, he's still sitting. He didn't move. When they go inside, it's nice and cool. Outside everything is hot and blistering. They're like, this is a Jannah inside of there. So people can sometimes be deceived by some of the simplest things. Obviously, people who know more are deceived by more complex things, but it's all deception. And remember, magicians, this is their trade. To amaze and dazzle the eyes. Didn't Allah Azza wa Jal tell us about the magicians of Fir'aun? سحروا أعين الناس واسترهبوهم وجاءوا بسحر عظيم. They magic the eyes of the people and they put fear into their hearts, and they came with tremendous magic. This is their affair. This is what they do. Do not take everything you see miraculous as a sign of somebody being what? An ally of Allah Ta'ala. In fact, in our time, these magicians have become more and more prevalent, more commonplace. Learning magic now does not require a trip to Babel. Learning magic now, unfortunately, has become so easy that people have courses to teach magic online by distance learning. And learning magic is kufr. This is the last thing that he mentioned here. that this is something that is being attributed to the prophets. He said, كَمَا نَسَبُوهُ لِسُلَيْمَانَ. And Allah Azza wa Jal defended Sulaiman. He said, وَمَا كَفَرَ Sulaiman. Because learning magic is what? Kufr. So if Sulaiman learned magic, he would become a kafir. And Allah defended him. He said, مَا كَفَرَ Sulaiman. Sulaiman did not commit kufr. Magic has no good in it. It is all harmful. It is all evil. Allah said, وَلَا يُفْلِحُ السَّاحِرُ حَيْثُ أَتَى. The magician does not succeed wherever he goes. We'll stop with this, inshallah ta'ala. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. We have a little time for questions, inshallah. We have a number of questions, inshallah. We'll try to take what we can. One of the questions is about the issue of fortune telling, zodiac signs, matters related to astrology. Is this a sign that someone else besides Allah has the knowledge of the ghaib, the knowledge of this unseen? The answer to that is no one knows the ghaib except for Allah. In fact, I'm going to tell you something that's very important. No one knows anything except for what Allah teaches them. Remember that. Nobody knows anything except for what Allah teaches them. Why am I saying this? Because if you remember earlier we talked about the jinn flying into the sky and trying to listen to what the angels are talking about. Sometimes they succeed. They will catch something. And before the shooting star destroys them, they will fly down and meet another jinn and quickly relay the information. So one by one, they relay it to one another. And the Prophet ﷺ described that they're on top of each other like this. So they form a chain and they pass that information down before they get burned. Until finally, the last one in the chain, he throws that information into the ear of what? The magician or the fortune teller, what we know as a kahin or the like. But the Prophet ﷺ also mentioned a problem. What is the problem? Is that each of these jinn in the chain is distorting that information. So by the time that it reaches the magician, it has 100 lies with it. So there's one solid piece of information and 99 lies. And so the magician or the fortune teller, he tells the whole thing to the people. And when the people, they see that one part came true, they say, oh, remember when he said such and such? And they deem that to be what? The truth. So yes, there is something that came from the heavens, but along with it was 99 lies. So what's the benefit of that information? Neither. Because while you're fishing for what's the truth and all the things you're being told, you are potentially banging your head against an unimaginable number of lies and basing hope on maybe this is the true one, or maybe that's the true one, or maybe that's the true one. I remember I was present one time as a child, and a fortune teller told two of my relatives that they're going to be married to one another when they grow up. When they grew up, they tried to get married. They figured, it's our destiny. Since this is what was said as we were children, it didn't work out. They didn't get married. Each of them married somebody else and moved on with their life. Years ago. This is all just games that the jinn play with people. And the number one objective that they have is to get you to believe in their power. This is the objective, to get you to believe in their power. So if you believe that they have some kind of access to the knowledge of the ghaib, you begin to submit to them. So your belief system is what? The knowledge of the ghaib is only with Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, and any information they have that is true is indeed taken from the heavens by theft, but they will also distort it and add so many lies to it until it becomes completely useless and of no benefit. And we should know. This is very important. Coming to a fortune teller of any type, whether it's a fortune teller online, a fortune teller in a newspaper, you read the little column where they're fortune telling, or it's a fortune cookie in a restaurant. Coming to any fortune teller with a belief that they are telling you something that is beneficial is leaving Islam. That is considered what? Disbelieving in what was revealed upon Muhammad. Coming to them out of curiosity just to see what they're about to say, a man's prayers will not be accepted for 40 days. We're not even allowed to check out what they're saying out of what? Curiosity. It is impermissible. It is a major sin. Imagine something that makes the salah unacceptable for 40 days. So this is the answer, inshallah ta'ala, to this. Nobody knows the ghaib except for Allah ta'ala. Although we do know certain things happen where these people can sometimes obtain a little bit of truth, but they use it to spread the evil and falsehood and make people rely upon them and come to them. Like, there's a question about the suffering of the Muslims in Palestine. And there is a request for a comment or advice. No doubt that this ummah is all one ummah. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. Surely the believers are nothing but brothers. So the people of Palestine are one with us. They are one with the Muslims of Syria, Lebanon, Jordan. They're one with the Muslims of Egypt, Sudan, Algeria, Libya, Tunisia. They're one with the Muslims of Mauritania, China, Spain, Italy. They're one with the Muslims everywhere. We are one ummah, united. What concerns them concerns us. What hurts them hurts us. Their problem is our problem. We are not separate. And so we do for them what we can. All of us, we can make dua. All of us, we can make dua. Dua for them. And dua against their enemy. And do not underestimate dua. The Messenger ﷺ, he said about dua, إِنَّمَا تُنصَرُونَ بِضُعَفَائِكُمْ. Surely you are only given victory by the weak among you, by their dua and by their sincerity. So the dua of the weak and the oppressed and the sincerity of those people who are weak and oppressed is a reason for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send down the victory. So we do not underestimate the dua. Those of us who can do more, they do more. They should. Whether it's a person who has access to the people's minds and ears, whether it's somebody who has a position of authority, whether it's somebody who has wealth, additional wealth that can be donated for their cause to help them. Everyone should do what they can. But as for the matter of fighting, like physically participating in fighting in Palestine on the ground, that is only with the permission of the Muslim leaders. Don't tell me I'm coming from America and looking for a way to go and join the war in Palestine. Don't tell me I'm coming from Libya and trying to sneak in and join that fight. That is not how things are done. That only leads to further problems, complications, and being used. Right now, situation in Palestine is a situation that was brought about because of hastings and lack of calculation, lack of proper planning, lack of proper preparation. None of the wars of Rasulullah look like this. Do you know any of the wars of Rasulullah that look like this? Inshallah, some of us have read the Seerah and we are familiar with the battle of Badr and Uhud and Hunayn and Al-Khandaq and so on and so forth. Do you see anything in the Seerah that looks like this? Huh? Anyone? Do you see anything in the Seerah? The Prophet went to many battles that looks like this. Huh? You say no? Why not? How come there's no battle in which the Muslims suffered so tremendously at the hands of the Kuffar, although they were very brave and willing? Because from the simplest of rules of engagement is do not engage with a power that is so far beyond your power that they will simply erase you. It's one of the simplest rules the Muslims know from their deen. Do not engage with an enemy that is far, far more powerful than you to the point that they will decimate you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught us about ratio in the Quran. What kind of enemy we are supposed to face and what kind of enemy we are allowed to run away from. What is the ruling of al-firar and the-zahf? It's from the major sins, right? To run away at the time of the meeting of the armies. It is from the major sins. But when we are so outnumbered that it's a matter of, there is no comparison whatsoever, the Muslimin are allowed to retreat. If you look into the Seerah, you see that the Muslimin have retreated in certain times. In fact, a man that we all know, Khalid ibn al-Walid, we know him for his courage, his bravery. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that he is a sword of Allah. Is there any doubt about the courage of Khalid? Huh? There is no doubt. When he took charge of one battle, after the leader of that battle died, one of the first things he did was what? Who can remember? Organize a retreat. He orchestrated and organized a retreat. What's the benefit of a retreat, by the way? And what else? Save the Muslim blood. Save the lives of the Muslimin. If you leave them in the thick of things, they will simply be decimated. So the preservation of Muslim blood is a known quality of the great leaders of the Muslimin. Today, we don't have this. We have youth, young men, who are unwise, who are not trained in the ways of war. They don't know anything about military strategy. They don't know anything about guerrilla warfare. They don't know much about much. But they are excited, they're zealous, they read the Quran, and they feel very excited, and they read the ayat about the angels coming down to help the believers, and they think that this applies to them. And one of their biggest problems is they don't have any scholars with them. So it's very easy to start coming up with opinions on your own. You're just discussing things with a group of youth just like yourself, and everybody's coming up with their own opinion, and then the zeal just kind of takes them. And so the result is going to be what? Catastrophic. And here's the thing, and this is the really sad part. These people are then utilized by the Western media machine, from CNN downwards, going through all the mass media outlets. They bring these people and they put them in front of cameras and what they did and the massacre and this and that, and they then go to the world stage and say, we have every right to use every means necessary, including weapons that are internationally forbidden and methods that are internationally regarded as war crimes. They say we have every reason to go after them. So what did they bring to the Muslim Ummah? They brought us harm and mayhem and damaged our standing in front of the nations. And they don't have neither a media machine to fight back, media for media, speech for speech, words for words, and they don't have weapons to fight weapons. Yes, they have bravery, they have courage, they have zeal, jameel, beautiful. But your Iman will only take you so far if you don't have any preparation. And in the meantime, the Muslims suffer because of it. One of the things about the believers, the Messenger ﷺ said, the believer is not stung from the same hole twice. The believer is not stung from the same hole twice. Why? Because believers learn. Lessons actually leave an effect on them. Back in the days of 9/11, for those of you who were old enough to witness those events and actually see them and understand them correctly, what did the Americans do with the imagery and the videos? Who can remember? What did the American mass media outlets do with the imagery and the videos of the planes crashing into the towers and the towers collapsing? And what? They played them over and over. For what? For what purpose? To remind the people. And then what? Exactly. They generated emotions and reactions. They garnered world support. The support of the world was so palpable that Americans felt absolutely no reserve. They went to Afghanistan and destroyed the country without any hesitation. Nobody could say anything to them. It was righteous rage. And then after that, they declared war on who? Iraq. Again, nobody could say anything to them. It's the war on terror. It's a righteous, holy war. But who supplied them with the imagery? Who supplied them with all the necessary footage, real footage from Manhattan? Muslims. Ignorant Muslims, excited young Muslims, who don't speak to the scholars, who don't confer with anyone before they go and undertake such major projects, but they drag the rest of us in with them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, and this is so clear, وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ, and their affair is a matter of consultation among them. Why are they excluding the whole ummah? You go and you do something on such a major scale that the whole ummah becomes involved, whether they want to be involved or not, without consulting anybody. Back then, Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Baz was alive, and Sheikh Fulan was alive, and Sheikh Fulan was alive. Many scholars were alive when some of these things happened. But they're not consulting anybody. Today, Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan is alive, Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad is alive, some of the major scholars are alive. They're not being consulted. These people are just doing whatever they want to do. What is your problem? All the scholars are misguided and you are guided. All the scholars are getting paid under the table and you're the only one that has his honesty intact and his integrity. What is this su'al dhann bil muslimin? Thinking so ill and so bad about the Muslims. We are the only righteous people left. We're the only ones that were willing to go to jihad. Everybody else is just sitting behind a desk and enjoying their hot tea and teaching a book. We are doing the real jihad, not you. This is the jihad. Bringing people back to the Sunnah, to Quran, to the Hadith, so people can understand where to start. When you start from the wrong place, the result is death and annihilation of the Muslims. It's not where you start. When the Sahaba radiallahu anhum came from Medina and they declared their Islam and they gave the pledge to Rasulullah and he was still in Mecca, and they said, "O Messenger of Allah, if you wish, we will go against them right now and start killing them." This is the secret pledge. They came in secret and they met with Rasulullah in secret and they gave him the pledge of allegiance. What did he say, Sallallahu? This is not what I've been commanded to do. It's not jihad. Assassination movements. Now, some Muslimin, they come out and they say, well, they have a right to defend themselves. Yeah, of course they have a right to defend themselves. Well, what kind of silly argument is this? You have a right to defend yourself, and so you go and you kill a few hundred or 1,000, and they kill from you 20,000. Let's do a little math here. Who defended themselves? You or the Jews? The Jews. Jazakumullah khair. One of the children here answered this question, for those of you who didn't hear it. This was a child. Sometimes children have better understanding than some of these zealous teenagers. Zeal, unguided by knowledge, uncontrolled by the wisdom of elders, leads to destruction. So again, they pull the whole ummah and they drag the whole ummah into these kinds of affairs without studying them, without understanding them, and they bring us this kind of destruction. And then some of us come out and they say, well, they had the right to defend themselves. No, ya akhi. Don't say that which is true to defend the falsehood. This is not self-defense. This is self-destruction. Defense, destruction. This is self-destruction. Also, these kinds of affairs and these kinds of actions, they have long-term ramifications. If you look at the map of Palestine and which areas are under the control of the Palestinians and which areas are under the control of the Jews, you see that throughout the years, the map has been changing. And the area controlled by the Palestinians has been what? Shrinking more and more. And every time it shrinks, if you look, you see that there's some kind of background story. The Palestinians did this, the Israeli media covered it very well, and they took that as permission to attack and expand. And by now you would think that the Palestinians have memorized the game plan, right? By now you know that every time you do this, you're going to lose some of your land. But the strange thing is, they keep doing it over and over and over. Do you expect the boundaries of Gaza, as we know them today, will stay the same after this? I fully expect the boundaries of Gaza are going to change position, and the amount of space that the Muslims are allowed to use is going to be even what? Small. Do not pick a fight with someone you can't fight. That doesn't make any sense. Allahu A'lam. This is all I have to say about this question. Now,
regarding what you said, there was teenagers that all this harm for those 20,000 innocent. Okay, let us say, what about the Arab leaders, Muslim leaders? Where are they? Israeli attacked Gaza 2008, 2012, 2014, 2019, and killed thousands of thousands. Where is these leaders?
that's a good question.
Where is those few of those who name them now? Neither one of them say something.
That's a very interesting question. So I'm going to take this question, but again, Ikhwan, the organizers of this event have announced that questions should be written, but because we have respect for our elder and for his age, we're going to take this question, inshallah, although it was verbal. But I don't want to remind everybody else that the question should be written. The answer to that question is, why? Let me first state the question so that everybody understands clearly what we're talking about. Why are the Arab leaders not engaging in this war? Why are the scholars not calling out the Arab leaders for not engaging in this war? In other words, there's two things that you're expecting. You're expecting the Arab leaders to jump in the war, and you're expecting the scholars to speak out against the leaders who do not jump in the war. To answer this in as brief terms as possible, and this requires a lot of explanation, I'm going to say, number one, the war with Israel is not actually a war with Israel. It's a war with the powers that are backing up Israel. The Jews are a tool. The Jews are what? a tool for others. Let me give you an example. Right now, if America wanted to do this work itself, do you know how much it would cost America? It would cost them literally 10 times as much money. But by allowing the Jews to do it, all they have to do is give the Jews about $5 or less billion every year. If America was doing this work itself, it would cost them no less than $50 billion a year. So this is called what? Smart business. Number two, if you understand who you're actually fighting, you're not fighting Israel. Israel, by the way, back in the days, the Egyptian president, Sadat, for those of you who remember those days, he said, if I was fighting Israel, I would send one brigade and it would destroy Israel. I'm fighting America. That's the reality. Right now, there are so many things that are happening that people don't understand. They just look at the surface and they're like, okay, let me give you another example. Right now, what's happening in Yemen, North Yemen, the Shia. How did they expand like this? Do you think this is done? This is America. When Saudi Arabia went to help the Yemenis regain their country against these militias and the Houthis and so on and so forth, and they were making huge progress in a short amount of time, they destroyed the Houthis to the point that there was nothing left except for the port of Hudaida, and then the Houthis would be completely cornered and they would be destroyed. What happened? For those of you who are actually monitoring these kinds of events and reading the political analysis and so on and so forth, who can tell me what happened? Most of us don't read. What happened was America stepped in and called out a humanitarian crisis and threatened military intervention if the countries that are fighting the Houthis move any further. In other words, America was saying, we were letting you fight up to here, but don't go any further. So they want that instability in the region. They want to have an arm in that region. They want to be able to do the evil that they're doing. And Israel is the exact same ploy, the exact same tactic that they're using to control the Muslims by putting this in their lands. So now the question becomes, if the Arab leaders somehow, theoretically, find a way to unite, I don't know how this is going to happen. This guy is saying the Sudanese people are the best. This guy is saying the Egyptian people are the best. This guy is saying the Saudis are the best. This guy is saying this. But somehow we all forget about these national issues that we have, and we unite somehow. Even the religion, we follow this madhab, we follow that madhab, we follow such and such, but somehow we unite. When we are united, can we fight America? Do we have nuclear weapons like they do? We're really talking about theoreticals here. What reason do you have to believe that the Muslim leaders will suddenly unite and the Muslim nations will suddenly unite? The people who cannot even pray the same way, they pray differently. People who can't even agree about the simplest basics of Islam. Right now, I'm going to pose a real question. If you walk down the street in any of these Muslim countries and you ask people, where is Allah? Will they agree about their Lord? Some of them will not even agree to answer that question. إذا قلت لهم أين الله بعضهم يقول لك في كل مكان قليل منهم من يعرف الإجابة الصحيحة ويقول الله عز وجل على عرشه فوق سماواته فوق خلقه جميعا. Very few of them know that answer. They don't even know the basics of their deen. What makes you think they are ready to wage World War III? Because that's exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be World War III. It's not going to be war against Israel. It's going to be World War III. The Arab Muslims and other Muslims against the rest of the world, pretty much. This is theoretical. This is empty talk. Prophet ﷺ, he did not start Islam from jihad. He explained that jihad is what? ذروة سنام al-Islam. I'm not a scholar.
I'm an average person who does some reading. And I already know this like the back of my hand, that this is just theoreticals, empty talk. What about the scholars who actually have information, who actually get calls from the governments and they're being asked, what do you advise us, Ya Shaykh? This is the situation, this is the situation, this is the situation. Our intelligence agencies are telling us this. Are they going to make a mistake that I wouldn't make? Obviously not. So this is the answer to the second portion of my question. Why aren't the scholars talking? Because we are talking in private channels to the governments, and they are telling the governments to not engage in a war that will only further hurt the Muslimin. Step number one is to admit our weakness and fix it. Not to have this arrogance and pretend like, oh, we're strong, we're powerful, and we can go and defeat them. No, we're weak. It's a reality. We're behind. We're behind on our faith. We're behind on our salah. Just look at our masajid. Who's coming to make the salah? And then you expect victory from Allah. Ya Ikhwan, this is the last thing I'm going to say in answer to this question. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا النَّصْرُ إِلَّا مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ الْعَزِيزِ الْحَكِيمِ. Surely victory is only from Allah. It's not from you and your devices. It is from Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. And the victory of Allah cannot be obtained except by obedience to Allah Azza wa Jal. نكتفي بهذا القدر. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.
جزاك الله